Springs Board for Land Use Hearings and Adjustments, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have a couple of cases to hear today. If everybody would please rise, those that are able, for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then, if you will, remain standing, and we want to have a moment of silence for Pete Pastore, who has been a longtime member of this board and passed away recently. And so after the pledge, we'll have a moment of silence for Pete. Steve, you want to start?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. That moment of silence is in lieu of the invocation that we normally do. City Attorney, Audrey, will you call the first case, please?
Thank you. Thank you. The first case.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We need a roll call. Pardon me.
Robert Serby,
here.
Chairman Brunswick,
Here.
Richard Donnelly,
Here.
Frank Wiles,
Here.
James Worcester,
Here.
Stephen Kissinger.
Here.
Now will you proceed? Thank you.
Thank you. The first case is a name of a street in Bonita Springs. It's 27844 Forester Drive, a setback variance number 16-25958-BOS. At this time, is the applicant here? The applicant here? Could you have him sit up front? There'll be some explanation. If you'll have a seat right over here, and then Mr. Fegan will sit here. This way, if the zoning board has questions of you, it's a very easy way to reach you. And I'm going at this time to just do a little bit of an explanation to the applicants. When we have applicants that are not represented by professional staff, whether it's a lawyer or planner or engineer, we change the normal process. Normally, you would have the burden of proof to go forward, but because you guys aren't accustomed to doing these types of cases, and I know you're probably nervous up here, what we do is we have the zoning professional from community development go forward and present the case. Certainly when there's no objections, it makes it easier. At this time, one of our requirements is we do need to swear in anybody who will be a witness in this particular case, whether it is Mr. Fegan, yourselves, Farrago, or any of your neighbors. So at this time, I'm going to ask anybody who's going to talk specifically to this case alone to raise their right hands. Okay, and I do have someone over there, and I can have you guys raise your right hand. Even if you don't think you're going to speak, that's okay. Do you swear, and you, sir? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Now, some people here have been tendered as experts in the past, and if anybody else is an expert, it's helpful if you let me know, and then we can do what we call a voir dire to make sure that you're accepted as an expert. I'm going to assume you guys aren't experts at this time. But Mr. Fegan, you've been previously tendered as an expert in land use and planning. Yes. Mr. Sweet, you've been tendered as an expert not only in land use and planning, but also, I believe, in appraisals and also surveying, correct? Mr. Dolmer and Ms. Denson, you've been previously tendered as an expert in land use and planning. And I need the microphone because I'm going to step away to the audience for a second. We have a court reporter. Oh, turn on. Okay. I can never do that. We have a court reporter also taking down everything, so we have a record. Sir, if you could state your name and your address.
Craig Palmer, 27749 Forester Drive.
Thank you. Palmer, got it. At this time, Mr. Fegan can proceed with the case.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Mike Fegon, Community Development, here to present this setback variance case for a property on Forester Drive. For the record, I would like to submit a backup copy of the application from the applicant, and we'll go ahead and we'll go forward with this. So just to solidify what the nature of the request is, it is for a property located at 27844 Forester Drive. The request is to grant a 5-foot reduction for a street setback and a 13-foot reduction for a water body setback pursuant to the development of a new single-family home. Right now, the current setback requirements in the code would be a 25-foot setback from the road right-of-way and a 25-foot setback from the mean high water line. So those are the two setbacks that the applicant would like to request a variance from. Some additional background. The lot itself is a platted lot of record. It appeared in a plat going back to 1942. It's known as Lot 13 of Block N. The zoning of the property is just a standard residential zoning designation, RS1, which stands for residential single family, compatible with the surrounding area. The requirements of an RS1 property in the current code are for a lot to be at least 75 feet wide and at least 100 feet deep. Those are the requirements as they are written right now. The actual width and depth of the lot renders the lot non-conforming. It is less than 75 feet wide. It is less than 100 feet deep. One thing to keep in mind is that when we do our measurements, especially for properties on a water body, we typically measure to the mean high water line and not necessarily the property line itself, because that's where we take our setbacks from in the code. So just to sort of solidify what it is that I mean by that, just a quick little aerial shot of the property as shown on a Lee County GIS map. Not completely accurate in terms of the location of the property lines themselves, but it's a good depiction of the overall size of the property. And you can, of course, see that the property lines themselves do go into the water. How much of that is usable? Again, it would depend on a couple factors. One would be whether or not there's a submerged lands lease that pertains to the subject property. Staff was unable to find one. Even if we were able to find one, I think there would be some potential issues with trying to fill in submerged land to make it buildable. There are certain environmental aspects of it that would render that not a favorable method of recourse for the applicant. If there were protected grasses or oysters or something like that in the water, the option to actually fill would be quite arduous and difficult. So the next best option is that you request a variance from the setbacks as they are currently written, with the understanding that you're really only talking about going from the mean high water line back to the property. So just to keep going, the lot itself is non-conforming. It is undersized, but it is a lot of record. The non-conformity is not a result of the applicant. It is a result of the way the land was originally platted and mapped out, going as far back as 1942. One thing to note is that over the years, several variances of a very similar nature have been considered and recommended approval and approved by the city and Lee County, including a couple on Forester Drive. Some neighbors of Mr. Farrago's, lots 16, 17, and 18, all received variances in 2008. The most recent request came in 2015 for a very similar request, and all of these variances are within the 375-foot public notification zone. So again, that helps to establish compatibility with the request of the applicant. With that in mind, and the fact that the applicant does reside on a substandard lot that is not the doing of the applicant, staff, if asked, would recommend approval of the variance request for a single-family home. The single-family home development is compatible with the surrounding area. Should I say redevelopment is compatible with the surrounding area. Similar variances have already been approved. The lot is undersized. It is not the doing of the applicant. And all of that is the criteria that we use as staff to determine the appropriateness of a potential variance. If the board sees fit and if council were to see fit, of course there would be conditions attached to the approval, such as limiting it to this lot in question and this lot only, and also making sure that all other development regulations remain in full effect. So lot coverage, maximum height, none of those things are getting triggered. We're talking 2 setbacks, a street setback reduction, and a water body setback reduction. Very similar to the prior variances. And also, just to sort of give you guys an idea of what Mr. Farrago is hoping to put on the lot, some examples of some of the homes that they would like to do. The property out there is in a V zone according to the FEMA map, so you are talking about elevating the structure off the ground, which is a FEMA requirement and a state building code requirement. The redevelopment that has gone on already on Forester has achieved a very similar product in terms of aesthetics, so it would be compatible with what is already currently happening up and down the street. And with that, if you have any questions or comments of me or the applicant.
Have any questions?
Is there a seawall on the property?
I believe they have bank protection. They do have riprap. I don't believe it's a seawall. But there is established bank protection, yes.
And if the variance is granted, how would the front of the house, the new house, align with the neighboring houses? The aerial that you showed us, which I guess is the existing house on the,
Sure.
you can see that the front facade of all those houses tend to line up. So the question is, given the variance, would that still be the case?
The front setback is just a reduction of 5 feet. So you're talking maybe a 5-foot difference. I believe that the existing home is meeting the exact setback right now of 25 feet. So you're talking a 5-foot difference. If I had zoomed out more, you would have seen the neighbors to the north that had the exact same variance. They're all a little bit closer.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a couple comments. On item number 4 of your recommendations, at the end, you call with accessory structures.
Mm-hmm.
What does that include?
Accessory structures include pools, decks, screen enclosures, sheds, things like that. We have the principal structure of the house, and then anything ancillary or after that is considered an accessory.
But there's really not room for an accessory structure except maybe a balcony on the west side. Would that be true?
Not necessarily. If they wanted to do a deck, for an example, if they wanted to do an open deck at grade, not elevated, they are permitted a less restrictive setback anyway by the code. And then just by the nature of the definition, a deck is considered an accessory structure. So it's just protecting the single family rights of the RS1 zoning district for the applicant.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions? Seeing none, do we have public input? Call for public input at this time? Anybody that wishes to speak for or? Please, will you come up to the microphone and give us your name and your address, and then
My name is Craig
pull
Palmer.
the microphone up, please. Thank you.
My name is Craig Palmer, 27749 Forester Drive, which is right across the street from these folks. I have no objection to what they're doing whatsoever. What they're going to do is improve the quality of the construction on Forester. Forester is going through a tremendous amount of changeover right now, with most of the older homes being torn down or remodeled. And in their situation, because they have such a small home on a small lot, they cannot do any remodeling. So I think that most of the neighbors, I have not met one neighbor yet that has not agreed to support the request.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to this matter? Please step forward. Seeing none, we have, I guess we'll call for a vote for approval or denial.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for a variance.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Will all those in favor, roll call? please.
Discussion.
Oh, any discussion? Thank you. Any I have to be retrained. It's been 3 months. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Robert and Serby,
Yes.
Chairman Brunswick,
Yes?
Richard Donnelly,
Yes.
Frank Laus,
Yes.
James Worcester,
Yes?
Stephen Kissinger.
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. City Attorney, will you please call the
Thank you.
second
The
case?
next case is, Mr. Sweet, if you could, we're just gonna have the next group come in. Thank you. The next case is Bonita Beach Road Commercial Plan Development CPD for Cyrus Bonita LLC, case number PD 16-27068, BOS, located at 9790 Bonita Beach Road, Bonita Springs, Florida, 34135. This is a request. I'll let that go during the particular case. But at this time, if I can swear in witnesses, Mr. Sweet, you've been previously sworn and tendered as an expert in land use and planning. If there's any citizens or on this particular case, please raise your right hands. Okay. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Now, Mr. Dulmer and Mr. Sweet, you've been previously tendered as experts in land use and planning. Ms. Crespo and Ms. Genson, were you sworn in just now? Okay. Ms. Crespo, you've been previously tendered by this tribunal as an expert in land use and planning. Would you like to introduce your client?
Mr. Mark Gohari is the applicant as well as the owner of the subject property.
Okay, thank you. And do you have any other engineers or anybody with you today?
No, ma'am, we do have the neighbor
Okay.
of Momentum Brewery is here as well.
Okay, I'm just going to go back here and, you're my Momentum Brewery person.
Yes.
Please state your full name for the record.
Brian Hahn?
And that's H-A-H-N?
Yes.
Thank you. And you can pass the mic. Just make sure the court reporter can hear your voice. Right?
My name is Jan Zimmer. I live at 9820 Citadel Lane, directly behind Momentum Brewery, Unit 101.
My name is Brian Angelo. I live at 9820 Citadel Lane, as well as owning a unit in 9895 Citadel Lane, directly behind the proposal.
My name is Jan Harton. I own 2 units. I own one in the west building, which is 9820, and I also own a unit in the south building, which is 9871 Citadel Lane. Both of these units would be impacted with noise and such.
Yeah, my name is Mitch Bodnerchuk. I'm the property manager for the Citadel Association. The address of Guardian Property Management is 6704 Lone Oak Boulevard in Naples.
And then I do want to make sure everybody, I'll get you started in a second, that everybody who is testifying also turn in the paper. We're great at spelling. If Leah, if you would pass that out for Charlie to this entire aisle. And if you have one already, that's even better. But that way we can actually spell your names correctly for the record, and we do appreciate being able to do that. Are you Mr. Zimmer? Or, oh, shouldn't guess. Go ahead.
I'm Salvatore Tambasio, and I'm at 9820 Citadel Lane.
Okay. And were you sworn in? Okay. Different. Anybody else in the audience? And if you did hear me last time, I did make the comment and the request that if you are a expert, let me know so we can have you properly tendered as such. Ms. Crespo, you may proceed with your case.
This is in the slide, right?
Mr. Sweet,
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, Alexis Crespo with Waldrop Engineering representing the applicant. As I noted, Mr. Gohari is here today, who's been the owner of the subject property since approximately 2004. I also have Lindsay Rodriguez, who's project planner with Waldrop Engineering, and our neighboring property owner. He's not the applicant, but he's here potentially to answer questions you may have regarding Momentum Brewery. I have a brief presentation to walk you through the existing zoning of the subject property and what is being requested through the proposed commercial plan development request. We are seeking to rezone the subject property, which is approximately 29,000 square feet, less than an acre in size, fronts on Bonita Beach Road, from what is currently zoned community commercial, which is a permissive commercial conventional zoning district that allows a broad range of uses, which I'll get into in the presentation. And we're looking to rezone it to a commercial plan development, which would allow development to be governed by a master concept plan, by a schedule of uses, and be associated with specific conditions as staff is proposing. So what happens in effect when zoned to commercial plan development is the neighborhood has a lot more information, and certainly the zoning board and city council have a lot more control about what occurs on the subject property. So we certainly see that as a benefit. The intent of the commercial plan development zoning district is to allow the current range of uses permitted under the community commercial zoning district and add really 2 uses that aren't permitted within that zoning district. One would be a 60-room hotel use. The site was previously developed as a hotel pre-2000, and we'll get into that as well. We are also looking to have the ability to do a temporary parking lot, which would be buffered, constructed in accordance with your land development code to service the adjoining property owner on a temporary and limited basis until such time as Mr. Gohari move forward with his hotel plans. The subject property is rectangular in shape, as you can see. It is located on the south side of Bonita Beach Road, approximately 3/4 miles to the west of Old 41, and between Old 41 and New 41, if you will. In terms of surrounding uses, to our east, we have the Comfort Inn Hotel Motel, which is a 69-room hotel, 3 stories in height. To the west, we have the Momentum Brewery property, which is zoned commercial plan development. To the north of Bonita Beach Road, we have multifamily uses within Spanish Wells, Marbella at Spanish Wells. And to the south of the subject property, we have multifamily uses, which are conventionally zoned in a commercial zoning district known as the Citadel, and where a lot of the folks here today reside. As I've noted, the property is under an acre in size. It's cleared and vacant. It was formerly utilized as a hotel, a 10-unit hotel, as outlined in your staff report. What Mr. Gohari is looking to do is an infill redevelopment project on a very important gateway corridor into the city of Bonita Springs and allow for utilization of the subject property in accordance with the underlying general commercial future land use and the commercial uses intended along Bonita Beach Road. Just a look at the past, we have an older aerial showing the extent of development previous on the subject property. You can see the Comfort Inn was developed in 1998, as shown on the aerial. The Citadel was in place, and the subject property was fairly rundown. I think you can tell from that photo on the property appraiser site. This was before Mr. Gohari purchased the subject property, to be clear. So since this time, that building has been removed, the site has been cleaned up. It's just a vacant field at this time, and we're looking to do some redevelopment, which would certainly be a great enhancement from what is there currently and certainly what was there pre-2000. I'll just note that the subject property is in the general commercial future land use category. This is dictated by your comprehensive plan to be the location for a wide range of commercial uses, services, goods, retail, office, to service the greater needs of the city of Bonita Springs. It also allows for high-density multifamily uses. So this is one of the more intensive future land use categories and was delineated along the frontage of the corridor, and also takes in the Citadel multifamily uses to the north in order to locate more density and intensity along your arterial corridors, which is where you want to locate those types of uses. In terms of the zoning, which is on the right hand of your screen, we are entirely surrounded by commercial zoning districts. We have the C1 conventional commercial category to the east, which is the developed Comfort Inn. We have commercial plan development to the west, and again, conventional multifamily to the north under the C1 zoning district. So entirely surrounded from both a land use, future land use standpoint and zoning standpoint by intensive commercial districts. What we're seeking to do is an infill commercial development. We're currently approved for community commercial uses, which has a very broad range of permitted uses. What it does not have is the hotel motel use. We feel by limiting that use to 60 rooms, which is less intense than our neighboring hotel, and also limiting the height as outlined in your staff report, that this will be a good addition to the schedule of uses from a land use standpoint. It's no more intense than some of the retail office uses already permitted, and will allow for Mr. Gohari to redevelop in accordance with market demand for more hotel units in the city of Bonita Springs. We are also seeking the ability to do a temporary commercial parking lot. I'll show you that layout on the master concept plan that would be buffered from the roadway and constructed again to your standards as outlined in the staff report. We are seeking one buffer deviation adjacent to the fence line on the northern property line, which we'll show you in detail on the master concept plan. And to offset the reduced buffer width, we are proposing additional plantings in terms of shrubs and trees to provide the screening intent of your land development code. The request is compliant with all aspects of your comprehensive plan, specifically the general commercial future land use category. The application demonstrates adequate public services are available in terms of fire, water, sewer, transportation to service the proposed uses. And we are in agreement that the proposed uses are compatible with the surrounding development pattern. This is the option A master concept plan. The hotel building is centrally located on the site. Due to the size of the property and that it is a smaller infill parcel, we'd be looking to do the parking underneath the hotel. So the first floor would be the parking areas. There's not room to accommodate that with the building footprint zone. So that is a couple things. It screens those vehicles from the street and the surrounding neighborhood and encloses them within the building so you don't see those parking areas, which aren't always as attractive. We have the drive aisles circulating around the building, which would be designed once we get to the construction plan stage to accommodate fire, delivery vehicles, etc. And then we have perimeter buffers in compliance with the land development code, the 15 feet along Bonita Beach Road, commercial buffering to the east and west, and then the buffer adjacent to the Citadel, which is already screened by an existing wall in their property. Option B is for the temporary commercial parking lot. This is not a long-term intent, but certainly something that could meet the needs of the neighbor while Mr. Gohari gets his plans together for the design of the hotel. What this delineates is angled parking to ensure efficient vehicular circulation. We have got our arrows showing how folks would enter the site from the existing access point at the Momentum Brewery. We're proposing cross-access between our neighbors that would limit the number of turn-ins off Bonita Beach Road, help reduce the number of outlets onto that roadway. And this plan allows for approximately 40 parking spaces. And again, all the buffers in compliance with the land development code would be shown. These are the internal parking, and then we've got the buffers there. So just to summarize, we are seeking a mix of commercial uses consistent with the future land use category. The maximum height allowed along the Bonita Beach corridor is 55 feet. We understand, based upon the existing conditions, staff is requesting a maximum of 3 stories, and that we come back with the architectural design of the building once Mr. Gohari has hired the architect and gotten that far in the process. It's very costly to design a building, so we're seeking the zoning approval with the understanding we can come back before you with the finalized plans for the design of the building at a later date once we know the use is approved. And we're understand that the sensitivity towards Bonita Beach Road at current time and are happy to make those plans available and come back for your approval on those. The motel use is less intensive than many of the approved commercial uses already allowed under the CC zoning. We're transitioning the intensity from the arterial roadway corridor as you head north to the multifamily within the Citadel. And all of the development will comply with the enhancements that Bonita has undertaken with their code. Within the last year or 2 years, Bonita has put in commercial design standards, higher architectural standards for the buildings, and will certainly be in compliance with all of those and demonstrate that through the city architect review process. I've touched on building height. We understand staff's conditions for 3 stories. We'd reserve the right to come back to you as conditions change with that architectural design and discuss building height in detail at that follow-up hearing in the future. We can show you the existing 3-story building to our east. We also have medical to the west of the subject property along Bonita Beach Road. So we feel that the 3 stories is entirely consistent with that existing development pattern, hence the condition by staff. We've demonstrated availability of infrastructure through our application from Bonita Springs Utilities and the fire district. And as Jay noted, this site was developed and the infrastructure is in place to service new development. The one requested deviation is a width reduction in our buffer along our northern property line. I'll just flip to the existing conditions. This is a constrained infill site. There are existing walls along those property lines, and so what we felt would be a great way to buffer those adjacent properties would be to provide more plantings in lieu of that width. So what we're proposing is an additional tree per 100 linear feet, as well as additional shrubs to allow for a reduced buffer width. And then that existing fence line would remain in the buffer on the adjacent properties are already in place to allow for screening of the building. And that would be in addition to the required building perimeter plantings that would also be required around the building to screen views from the upper stories within the Citadel. And those are just additional pictures of the walls. We're in agreement with staff in terms of their analysis on Bonita Plan compliance. I won't belabor this and touch on all those policies, but we are generally consistent with the underlying general commercial future land use category. We will be consistent with the vision for Bonita Beach Road, the aesthetics and visual appearance that the city would like to see, and all of the infrastructure requirements set forth in the Bonita Plan. Staff has recommended approval. They have recommended 9 conditions of approval. We are in agreement with staff. They have limited the height to 3 stories and required additional architectural review by the zoning board, and we look forward to coming back to you with those specific plans upon approval of the hotel use. We're in agreement there is adequate public infrastructure and that the commercial plan development zoning provides the city with more details and control over how this very important infill property gets developed over time. We are consistent with the requirements of your land development code and comprehensive plan, and we would respectfully request your recommendation of approval for the CPD request. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
I
Ms.
have a
Worcester.
question.
Yes, sir.
Relative to the setback on the north side, well, first of all, your first plan that was presented, I believe you had everything upside down.
Oh,
The
I?
original picture. You showed it on the south side of Bonita Beach Road. Now keep going all the way back to.
the north is to the right here.
No, I understand, but the very first picture, when you open your statement.
Oh, the aerial.
Yes,
I
it was
apologize.
upside down.
Apologize for that.
And you stated it was on the south side. We are on the north side of Bonita Beach Road,
I'm sorry. Yes, you're correct.
okay? I have a problem with the variance for the setback on the north end. Both properties to the east and west currently have a 15-foot buffer back there. Now, I appreciate there's a little offset in the property line at the Comfort Inn site, but they're 15 feet wide, and I see no reason they should not still be 15 feet, just for continuity across that north line. And I personally do not feel that additional planning will offset the 7.5-foot request of reduction of that setback.
The buffers to the east and west are 5-foot type A buffers to the Comfort Inn and the brewery to our east and west. The requirement, as you've noted.
No, not, I'm talking about the north buffer, not the side yard setback, not the side yard buffer.
Yes, sir. Towards the Citadel where the deviation is being requested. I was just wanted to clarify that the other buffers are not 15 feet.
I believe they are 15 feet to the north.
The code does require 15 feet to the north. yes,
Right,
sir.
and you're asking for a deviation of that for your property to 7.5 feet.
Correct. We were looking to offset that with additional plantings in order to help cut down on some of the space available on site.
And I don't see that that would be a fair offset. It wouldn't match the two adjacents, the one to the east and the one to the west. And buffers are there for a reason. And just to shorten it up and put more planting in there does not equate to the continuity that was intended in the zoning ordinance.
Understood. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
I guess I'd like to know your view of you state that this is in compliance with the Bonita plan. I wonder if you could elaborate on that. And also, I think we all recognize the struggle that the city is having with traffic on Bonita Beach Road. And you're asking for a change in use that is a more intense use that's allowed under the current CC zoning. And I wonder if you could elaborate on your thinking about, why this makes good planning sense at this time. So those two, if you could talk a little bit about the Bonita plan and also the traffic issues.
Certainly.
Rich, are you talking about the visioning study for traffic?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And that's one of the conditions that staff has cited.
And those are excellent questions, and I didn't really touch on I'll start with the traffic question. We did have a traffic impact statement prepared by Tribill Consulting and Associates, a professional engineer. The level of service along the roadway will operate at an acceptable range after the project is built out, and the off-site impacts, any turn lanes will be evaluated at the time of development order. So the level of service standard along Bonita Beach Road will remain above the minimum standards set forth in the comp plan upon build-out of this project based upon the projected development along Bonita Beach Road, including existing approvals. So we have met that burden of proof in our application that the trips generated by this project will not result in any degradation to the level of service. I'll note that the hotel use actually produces less trips than many of the retail uses currently permitted in the community commercial zoning district. So by adding this use, we're actually adding a use that generates potentially less trips than what could be constructed under the current zoning. So that's something important to note due to the nature of hotel uses, such as a high turnover CVS pharmacy, food stores, an Aldi grocery store, for example. Some retailers are going to produce significantly more trips than the hotel use that we are seeking to add through this CPD. So we feel like we've addressed the traffic concerns through the application. We're in agreement with the conditions in place that at the time of development order, once the exact number of rooms are pinned down, we'll do another TIS. It will be reviewed by community development, and then they'll determine any turn lane needs, et cetera. I'll also note that I think this will be a great improvement. Mr. Gahari's not seeking direct access to Bonita Beach Road. He's working with his neighbors to have cross access, which is going to cut down on the number of ingress egress onto Bonita Beach Road, which certainly without turn lanes, and we've all been in that right hand lane and had somebody turning into a driveway, and it can block up traffic and create some safety concerns. So we feel like the design with cross access between Momentum and Comfort Inn will actually improve the traffic circulation along Bonita Beach Road upon build out, whereas another user might want to seek out access directly to the roadway, depending on their use. And then you also asked about comprehensive plan consistency. I've touched on the general commercial future land use, what's intended for that category. Again, a wide range of fairly intensive commercial uses, as well as high-density residential, which again would be pretty significant trip generators. We've been watching the tool study. We understand the desire for this roadway really to be a gateway, to be walkable, bikeable. This use will allow for potentially accessory restaurant type use that will be oriented towards the roadway we're going to be subject to any buffer enhancements that come forth from that study. So we will meet the goals, objectives, and policies within the comprehensive plan for ensuring this is a beautiful corridor.
I saw a raised eyebrow. Another question, Jim?
Yeah, relative to the traffic, in looking at the aerial, it appears that there's not very much room between the north edge of pavement of the existing two-lane Bonita Beach Road westbound traffic. We need in order to have the complete streets philosophy as part of the visioning study, we're going to need to separate the pedestrian traffic and the bike traffic that's anticipated on the north side of Bonita Beach Road. But more importantly, there doesn't appear to be room for a right turn lane without additional right-of-way being taken. I assume you would be willing to donate the right-of-way and obtain the right-of-way to provide a right turn lane, because you're going to have more traffic going into that existing curb cut west of your site. You're going to possibly double it or even more. So a right turn lane, and we did not receive a copy of the traffic study in our package. So there's been no study relative to right turn lane needed. Is that a true statement?
Correct. That occurs at the development order stage once Mr. Gohari has his specific plans in place, and that would be determined, and staff has done a lengthy set of traffic-based conditions that would ensure Mr. Gohari would need to accommodate any turn lanes that would be triggered by his development, should they be triggered based upon his final development order plans.
And a turn lane may require additional right-of-way to the east, which is on property you don't own, there at Comfort Inn, in order to get a right turn lane in. And you would be willing to participate in obtaining that right-of-way if needed.
Any off-site improvements triggered by the development has to be addressed in accordance with the conditions in your code. So
Right, with no expected waiver of impact fees to obtain those conditions.
is that? Would you like to address that?
It may be easier for us to go with our presentation and address.
Very good.
Okay,
All
that's
right, good.
fair.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
For the record, Jay Smith, Community Development. Let me give a little background on the property, which you've already heard, is that it's less than an acre of property. It's 105 feet wide lot. One of the issues of that is, of course, the width along Bonita Beach Road and having access in its own driveway. It was a hotel at one time. I have testimony from certain people in the community. They think it was about 10 units. That it was an old-style extended stay. Basically, it was a very low rent place that people could crash. So to be polite and somewhat politically correct about the use that was there. The future land use of the property is general commercial. The current zoning is CC, as Alexa stated. And of course, the property is currently vacant. Sometime between 2000 and 2002, the property was bulldozed and cleaned up. As we've already talked about, to the north, you have the Citadel residential condominiums, which are technically in a commercial zone, but the city allows high-density residential and commercial, and that's how they were built. To the east, and they're two-story buildings. To the east, we have the three-story Comfort Inn. To the west, we have the one-story Momentum, we'll call it the Momentum building. There's also auto repair facilities in there. And then, of course, across to the south, we have Marabella, which is multifamily two-story condominiums. Their request is to rezone it to a 60-room hotel, and we talked about the deviation for the buffer, and to add addition of a commercial parking lot. Commercial parking lots are a special exception if you're going to use property strictly for parking. I'll let them define that exactly. It's my understanding that they would probably be leasing that to the Momentum people so they have more parking, which they could use. Same site plan that you've seen in her presentations. And then we had asked for some architectural renderings of what the building would look like, and they gave us these as an example of how a boutique hotel would look. Because one of the things that we are concerned about with the visioning of Bonita Beach Road is how everything interacts, and that has to include architecture, has to include traffic, has to include all of these functions. Staff is concerned about the architecture for a variety of reasons, also which is what do the residents in the Citadel see when they look at the building, and look in the back of the building, or they're looking at something that's architectural pleasing. They did a rendering of what they think they're looking at, but again, they haven't actually gone to their architect to design it yet. And so there's what we have so far. Staff is recommending approval with a series of conditions. Now, we had already come up with these conditions. Since that time, we've got notices back from the neighborhood. I have gotten 30 mailings of people, almost, well, all of them in opposition. Some of them just say opposed. Some of them spell out why they're opposed. And I know we have many of them here today. Some of them own more than one unit. So 30 doesn't necessarily represent the number of units. It represents the number of people who, individuals who responded. Most of their concerns have been, when stated, as with height, traffic, and how it affects the impact on their property. Prior to even getting those, staff had written the recommendations, and we had, the following is, we want to maintain the compatibility of the neighborhood, and we feel that the 50+ feet or 4 or 5 stories was too high. It needs to be 3 stories to be compatible with the neighborhood. Our recommendation is that it be approved for a maximum of 60 rooms of a hotel. We're not convinced that when you actually put pen to paper and design and put the building on there and figure out your parking and figure out all those things that you can actually get 60 units, okay? So we're asking that to be the maximum, the actual to be determined when they come back at the time of their site plan approval and architectural approval to be evaluated. And that seems to be a reasonable approach to take when we're talking something a little more abstract. We also recommend that they come back to the zoning board for architectural approval. That, again, being in the corridor and where it is, that you also have an opportunity to look at that architectural requirements and see how it interplays with the city's plans. Obviously, access to Bonita Beach Road is a very important issue here. And one of the things that we need to understand is that Bonita Beach Road is a Lee County road, and they would prefer to have no access points in that property. They can't technically do that because you have to allow someone access to the property. The city, in the previous approval of, I think it was called Auto Electric before Momentum moved in, required them to provide a cross-access agreement. We've put a further agreement that they approach Comfort Inn to get a cross-access to Comfort Inn so that we can avoid any additional turnouts onto Bonita Beach Road and the impact that would cause. They've asked for the commercial parking lot, of course, and we see that as a situation that could help a situation that currently exists. Obviously, we are concerned about buffering. I know that some of the residents have, and you will hear from them, that Momentum has been using the vacant lots and that in maybe less than an appropriate way. it should be done appropriately. Creating the parking lot, putting in the landscaping, putting in the controls would be a way to make sure that's done in an appropriate manner. So we talked about the cross-access. Now we have transportation. Understand that there's a lot of things involved in the transportation. According to changes in state law, we cannot deny somebody simply because there's not enough road capacity. There has to be extenuating circumstances beyond that. But one thing we can do is that we can say, you need to pay your proportional fair share of the improvements needed to allow what you want to do be built. And to that end, staff has a list with a whole bunch of sub-items in the traffic condition. And again, until we know the exact number of units, this is something that is sort of fluid. And so in our conditions, we have that approval of this does not guarantee concurrency. Because until they come in with their plan, I don't know, frankly, if that will be 6 weeks from now or 2 years from now. And depending upon that, the conditions will change, and that may put them into a whole nother criteria of what they need to approve. And so we've made that very clear in our conditions. This project does not address any mitigation because, again, we don't have that staff report, or that traffic report, I should say, that comes at the time of development order, which identifies all of the impacts and how to address them. So one of the things that, to make sure that we are adequately addressing this, is we have a condition there that at the time they come in for the development order, they need to perform a traffic impact analysis to these standards. And what the standards say is that if you put so much traffic on the road and it's over a certain percentage, then you've got to expand out to the next link and look at your impact at the intersections. If you exceed that, you got to link out to the next link. And so I would not anticipate a 60 unit or less hotel to have to go very far in their links, but this is becoming a standard condition that if you come in for an approval, when we have the traffic on Bonita Beach Road, 41, Old 41, as everybody anecdotally knows how it exists during season, that this be reviewed and that impact be analyzed at the time they come in for the development order. And one of the reasons, and there's twofold reasons to that, so that we're dealing with the conditions as they exist when they come in, because other developments may have been approved and be under construction, and those trips should be added, or not. And that also allows for the opportunity, once the visioning study is completed, the manner and method that is chosen to address these may have changed. The current manner and method, which I don't think anybody wants, is just keep widening the road, widening the road, widening the road. And under the Lee plan, that's sort of how the approach is at this point in time. The city is in the process of doing a visioning. There's been many suggestions. Nothing's been adopted officially yet, but there's been some of going on a road diet, making lanes narrower so that you can create space to do the multimodal path on one side of the road. All of those are things that should be addressed, but we don't have those answers yet. What we're saying is that whatever those conditions are, when they actually come in for their approval, they need to address those items. And again, we talk about the additional links, we talk about the proportional fair share. The proportional fair share comment we have in there is based upon the current Lee plan, which is you add lanes. And so under the current plan, if you add lanes, and I'll be a little oversimplified here, if you add lanes and one lane adds 10 trips or 100 trips, and you only need to add 10, you pay your proportional fair share, a tenth of whatever that cost would be. And that cost would include the construction, right-of-way acquisition, whatever it was needed, but that would be addressed at the time of development order. And again, that's all subject to change based upon if the city council adopts a different manner in which how they want to handle the traffic. So, there's where we are with this. And of course, we have the same, it is currently, it meets many of the elements of the comp plan. And one of the elements of the comp plan is that you do the traffic. And our condition is that the traffic be addressed appropriately at the time of development order. I can answer any questions, go in more depth.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have any questions? I have, go ahead. Well, okay, go ahead.
Thanks for your presentation, and I understand what your discussion relative to the improvements for turning, such as turning lanes and the developer pay. But let me ask a question. You have a temporary parking lot proposed that has 40 parking spaces. Okay, and that's going to be leased to somebody. All right, because there's apparently a need for more parking in the area by somebody, you know. All right, you're going to put a 60-room, up to 60-room motel in. Motel, which would require at least 60 spaces. There's only, and that's going to be under the structure, the way, probably, in order to squeeze that much in. So you're really going to need more parking for a 60-room motel than you could possibly put on that site.
Which is why that we put the condition in there. It's up to that many rooms. The actual number of rooms will be determined at the time they come in for their site design.
Okay.
I mean, as crazy as it sounds, if they wanted to create some sort of parking structure over half the building and build, why you would do it, I don't know, and build, you know, apartments on the other side or hotel rooms on the other side, there's things that you could do. Why you would do that, it doesn't make any sense to me, but there might be something that makes sense in the future. But the bottom line is that the total number of parking spaces that they need for the hotel, I think is going to limit the size of the hotel. And that's going to be a design function. And that's going to be a design function when they come in to figure out how they're going to make that work. And that's the reason the staff said, we want to understand to them very clearly that we're saying that 60 is the maximum number of rooms. That doesn't mean that you're getting it. The same way it doesn't mean you're getting concurrency. You got to come in and show us that it's physically possible to do this, because with a bubble plan, it doesn't show me that it's physically possible. And so that's why the condition is the way it is.
Okay, I understand that, but it seems like they're trying to put a 10-pound loaf in a 5-pound bag to start with. Okay, and then additionally, the height limitations. It's obvious under this plan, this proposal, that they're going to have something over a parking lot in order to help solve this problem of not enough parking spaces for the required need for the site. That would count as one floor. So all of those elevations we saw would have to show everything elevated 12 feet, 11 feet, whatever it would take.
It's staff's intention that there's 3 levels. And if they want to use their first floor for parking, they can do that. Then they get second, and they get the 3rd floor.
Okay.
If they want to use part of it for parking and reception and stuff downstairs, you know, it's a function of their design. And staff would always prefer to have a plan that shows the design, the architecture, and everything when they come in as zoning. Ironically, as it may seem, if this was a chain of some kind, they probably have a plan somewhere that say, yeah, it'll fit on this lot. Here's what it looks like, and here's what we're going to do. They would modify it. This is a boutique hotel. He needs to design it. You know, his economics are his economics, without us getting into that. I think it is generally thought of in the industry that the magic number that hotels start to really work is the 60 units. So I'm sure that's where the 60 unit came from. But it is a function of how can he fit it on there. And it may be that he can't, and it may be that the hotel doesn't get built, which is one of the reasons I think they want to retain their existing use of the CC zoning district. On the other hand, every day something new comes up design-wise, car size-wise, access-wise. This may be very viable 3 years from now. And so all we're saying is that you have to come back in and readdress this.
Okay, I appreciate your having a handle on what's ultimately going to go in there, because I feel what's proposed is impossible to fit in that site.
And I don't think we really should dwell too much on this, because at this point, it's not even conceptual. It's just, it's a plan that they would like to reserve the rights to at such time, whether you said it 2 years or 5 years or 10 years down the road, they can come in and build a hotel that will fit. And it might be by that time, everybody will be using Uber and you won't need parking at all. But we'll have to wait and see how that plays out.
And one of the recommendations is that this does come back to you. So this isn't getting approved in a vacuum.
Right. Correct. I have, okay, go ahead. I have a question too.
some things I need to ask Jay, just so that I have the record completed. Jay, you mentioned that the applicant would like to continue to retain his CC uses in the event he doesn't build a hotel.
Correct.
Is it okay if I add a condition to that effect?
Yes.
So that it's very clear in the conditions that the CC, now those CC is subject to change. It's not a static list. This will be whatever the list is at the time of a particular use.
Right. So
Subject to the Bonita Beach Road corridor overlay.
So just so to clarify, that this condition would be that if they don't build the hotel, the CC use they have on the property would stay. But the list of uses allowed in CC are subject to change, because as part of the visioning study, Tool Group has hired a zoning and planning group to recommend changes in uses. So there may be uses that get deleted. So the applicant needs to understand that just because they keep the CC, it's not static. It's active, and there are uses that may be added or eliminated from that.
And then I have another thing to ask him, and I'm sorry, it's just for the record. And you had a wonderful slide up there for your findings of fact. I'm going to just ask you a few questions on the deviation finding of fact. Is the deviation, does it enhance the objectives of the plan development?
In the staff's opinion, the reason we felt the deviation would work is because of the wall. Now, understand that the wall, the landscaping that they're planting, you can't see from the other side because the wall hides it. It seemed appropriate to us that more trees, things that would be above the wall, to create more buffer above the wall, were appropriate. And with getting more vegetation, so that vegetation was above the wall, we felt that it met the intent in the buffering. Now, if the wall had been 15 feet on their property and there were landscaping in front of it, that would have been a different situation. But that's not the situation as it exists.
I just want to finish up with that. I need you to say yes or no to the two things. One was the enhance the objectives of the plan development, so I'm assuming
Yes.
that's a yes. And the other is, does the deviation recommended for approval preserve and promote the general intent of the Land Development Code to protect the public health, safety, and welfare?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question. It's my understanding that in order for us to consider this, that the cross-access easements need to be in place before they can even start this, even put in the parking lot. Am I correct in that? And my second part of that question, have these already been obtained? Has the Comfort Inn and Momentum, I understand Momentum probably has approved this because it benefits them, but has the Comfort Inn given any
The CPD, where Momentum is, that was actually a condition of their original approval when they were in I want to say in 2001, 2002, whenever that was originally approved. There was a condition that there'd be that connection. And as a matter of fact, when you pull in that, you see that it was built and just dead-ended. That was a condition of that. This would be a requirement to continue on. I don't know the status of any connection or any conversations with the Comfort Inn people. I can easily check with them, pursue it. I don't know if you have.
It's not in place yet.
It's not in place yet. But
As a result of this hearing, though, they're obviously going to hear about it.
they are.
Okay.
And I would just clarify that the access would be from the Momentum existing cross-access easement. We would work with the neighboring property owner, but obviously we couldn't force them to grant us the easement. So at minimum, we would have access to our west through Momentum's access point.
At the minimum,
Yes.
on the west side of the property. Question here?
I wanted to follow up from an earlier question asked. Can you confirm what the adjacent properties to the east and west buffer zones are currently?
That would be the Comfort Inn.
That would be the Comfort Inn and
And
the
Momentum Brewery.
Momentum Brewery, correct?
I can't confirm what they are at this moment. I don't have.
We know them to be the Comfort Inn.
I was
the
just going from
east.
the aerial, because those are both constructed. in
Where'd
the-
you get an aerial?
Off the LEPAC map.
Oh, not part of your
It
package.
was not part of the package. And to scale visually, the buffers on each side are 15 feet ahead of the parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know exactly. I've been on the site and I've been on the Comfort Inn site. I know they don't have that much vegetation between them.
That's true.
As a matter of fact, it almost looks like that they were using it as a retention area, the way that it is rocked. I don't know that to be true, but it just appears that way. They have the wall, and I think they have the land. I would estimate that it's at least 10 feet. If it's 15 feet, it wouldn't surprise me. But that's just from, going out and walking the site and observation. I didn't measure it. I would note, though, that landscaping-wise, it's sparse. I'll be nice.
On the Comfort Inn
On the
side.
Comfort Inn side.
Okay. Does that answer your questions? Okay. Any other questions?
The Momentum Brewery, are they a tenant or do they own the building?
They're a tenant.
So we don't know the attitude of the building owner in this deal, do we?
I don't know if the applicant does. I know the owner of Momentum is here to speak under public comment, and I'm sure you can ask him.
Right. I mean, he might not be the tenant from when his lease is up.
Right.
Anything else before we open it to public comment? Jay, thank you for your presentation. Okay, at this time, we'd like to open it for public comment. If you'll just line up here at the microphone, and when you get up here, again, state your name for the record and your address. And, yes, sir, welcome. You're
Welcome.
number one.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Brian Angelo. I'm the president of the Citadel Association, Condo Association, which is directly north of the proposed development. We have a number of concerns. I don't know if you can pull up an aerial or a rendering of what you had at the very beginning. I don't see any renderings of the buildings, of our buildings in their drawings. That's good enough. That one's good. Our biggest, we have many concerns. Noise being number one. We're not opposed to anybody, you own a piece of property and you can develop it, but along the way, along Bonita Beach Road, they've got a number of medical buildings, which seems to conform noise-wise with residential surrounding it. They're gone by 5 o'clock. And for that matter, I don't know why, if Momentum needs more parking, the medical building directly to, I come over here.
I'd like to point out that picture's upside down.
Well, no, this is Bonita Beach Road. This is Momentum right here. And this is all free parking after 5 o'clock. Not free, I mean in terms of free, but there's nobody there. So I believe they've been using that. But they have been taking liberty, even though I believe they have been addressed not to use this spot here. But if you'll notice, this building is residential. The distance, you could hear me, couldn't you? Oh, what? I'm on TV? You'll notice that this is even closer to the back end of this property than either the Comfort Inn or this Momentum building. The other concern we have is along here, all the infrastructure or utilities will be serviced to the back of the building, which is even, we've got a dumpster over here, which attracts at Dolly's, the back of the Comfort Inn. The back of over here attracts the turkey vultures. We get that, and we get rodents. Number one, they don't float. You know, when you service in the hospitality business, which I assume you'll be having some sort of food services in there, it overflows in the dumpsters. They just don't have the capacity for that. So that's a big concern. In the evening, it's really quite quiet back here. Comfort Inn, many, many nights has refrigerated trucks running all night. Now, where would if there was a building, where would the air conditioning units be? Where would the dumpster be? How would the big advanced disposal trucks make the turnaround? I mean, the lot is the size of a postage stamp. It really is. I mean, I don't know how they can fit, everything that they propose to fit. But noise is a big concern. Elevation is a big concern. And also to extend further use to whatever is in there or to Momentum, you give an inch, they take a yard. So recently, or not so recently, there's been further use outside food vending, food trucks, cars parked in here. All of this activity will be beyond the 5 o'clock hour. So it's just I don't see a win-win situation. Like I said, we're not opposed to building something over there, but I think it should conform to what exists along there. I don't know if they're planning on putting a restaurant in there. If you have 60 rooms, that's 60 cars, plus staff, plus Momentum, plus. And if they're thinking to come in, there's access to Comfort in here, it's the size of a driveway here, and then there's one access point into the Comfort Inn over here. Now, there's been fatalities. This becomes a turnaround here, and then up here at Wisconsin is another turnaround. We may have to go and get traffic lights in here. During season, you can't get across there, 15 minutes or so. So, I just don't see how it could be viable to have anything more impactful than what is already there. That's all I have.
Thank you. Additional public comment, just come forward, and why don't you just get in line behind her,
you don't
sir,
need
and
this.
then
That's double
you'll
dipping.
be right up here. You'll be next. You'll be number 3.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
My name is Jan Zimmer. I live directly behind the Momentum Brew House. And the noise levels without an additional hotel and additional parking with additional cars is such that during the wintertime, I have to keep my house closed up. And I can't, cannot imagine the amount of additional noise would come from a hotel, especially if they do have any entertainment, which really nobody knows for certain. I do have a letter from my owner. I am a tenant, and he has asked me to represent him. And he is opposed.
State his name for the record, please.
His name is John Frisella, and he owns number 101 at 9820 Citadel Lane. He says he is opposed because with Momentum Brewery and the Comfort Inn create loud noise pollution, and an additional hotel, motel with bars or cocktails will only cause disproportionate amount of noise. And he gave me his ability to state that. But for my own personal view, the way it is now, I find it at times, especially in season, unbearable noise-wise. So I would respectfully request that this be not approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
State your name, please.
Yes, my name is Mitch Bodnerchuk. I'm with Guardian Property Management and the property manager for the Citadel. And a couple of observations are, one of them, besides what you've heard already on noise, I think just sort of the rodent and pest control issue is of concern because a hotel will bring a lot more of that to the area. And secondly, as affecting the Citadel, the utility line or a sewer line really is in their property, and if there is any type of blockage on everything that goes into that line, it causes a disruption inside the, excuse me a second. Couldn't happen sooner. Thank goodness for a Blu-ray in my ear. The repairs would be done on the Citadel property, and so we're just increasing our risk for more disruption within that community. I do have one other question for the design. Is just my concern about life safety with the hotel as it's sort of shown schematically, and that really relates to the ability for the fire department to get their vehicles in and around the building. I know they're very particular in having access just to provide their services, and it looks like it's going to be a very tight fit. So that would be a very serious concern in my mind.
Thank you. Any other? One more.
My
Sure.
name is Brian D'Angelo. I was here earlier.
Microphone.
Oh. I was told I have a theatrical voice. Adding to what Mitch had to say about the sewer line is right along here, and right in here is the water retention basin for, it drains off along here, goes underneath this, there is a wall between the health center and us, and it runs along here, culvert, then it goes underneath the wall in front of here, along here, underneath the entrance to Citadel, and then back into here. So, and along here, there's right around here, there's an opening between Comfort Inn and this area, and then it goes underneath, but all the water from all around drains into this area here. Sewerage also along here is a manhole here and here, but they came and did a clean out just recently, and I asked, well, where does all this come from? Is this just servicing Citadel? He said, no, this services Comfort Inn all along here. So if there's, and there has been repairs, sinkholes, and so forth, when there's a leak under there, and who would address the maintenance on that? So if there's something that leaks back there and they have to dig it up, do we have to assume the cost of that?
These are all good questions. I don't know if staff wants to address those at this time. This is a conceptual use of the property at some point in time down the road when a more definitive plan is presented to city staff, community development. All of these things would, of course, have to be taken into consideration. Jay, do you want to speak on that at this time,
Sure,
or wait till?
Just real brief, and that is to clarify two things. I did load the aerial and scale off the buffer along Comfort Inn. It varies.
Excuse me. Yeah, I guess we can see. Okay.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure we could see on TV.
It varies between 5 and 7 feet, and there's some kick-out islands. So it's It looks bigger than it really is, and there's not much landscaping in it. To get back to the other point, though, simply, when we get a site plan, a site plan that shows the information that we need, obviously, one of the first things we do is the fire department comes down, they sit with us, fire marshal reviews it. If it doesn't meet the turning radiuses to get the fire trucks in and around it, it doesn't happen. They don't back their trucks up more than 150 feet. So if you go down a road so far and you can't turn it around, it doesn't happen. So they have very specific rules and so forth. Bonita Springs Utilities provides utilities to the site. They've said they have capacity. Now, if there's lift stations back there, and if there are BSU lift stations versus private lift stations, there's a difference in the maintenance of who maintains it. If it's a BSU maintained, that's part of all of us who are members of the co-op, and we pay our monthly bill. We all know that that's, part of their maintenance responsibilities. But again, Bonita Springs Utilities will come in, and then depending upon what they do there, they have very specific regulations. Let's say they don't build a hotel and they want to build a restaurant. BSU is going to come in and say, okay, we need to see your menu, and you're going to put grease traps in and interceptors to address our concerns. So all of those are things that get addressed at the time of site plan approval. With this bubble plan, again, it's something that staff doesn't get that level of detail to say, this is really good, this is really bad, which is the reason we have the conditions that we have in it. Similarly, the condition that we have in it for the architectural, before we came to the architectural, the city architect would actually look at it, review it, say, hey, this is wrong, or this needs to be done, or whatever. It wouldn't be an arbitrary plan brought back to you. It would be something that the city architect had already looked at and vetted versus the design standards in the code. So those are all things that are done on a regular basis. This is a conceptual approval. Whether or not they should even go forward, I guess that's the best way to put it.
And we appreciate the public's input and the thought process that Jay has expressed at the time that this becomes a viable project. All of these things will be taken into consideration. You will then have it'll come back before the zoning board. At that point in time, you'll have another opportunity to come back and express your wishes, your concerns, whatever they might be. And yes, ma'am.
May I make just a few closing comments related
You
to
surely may. You want to do them from there or step up to the microphone?
I just want to reiterate that the request before you today is really to add the hotel use to this property. It is currently zoned community commercial. Without any further approvals, this application could be withdrawn and Mr. Gogohari could sell the property to be developed as a fast food restaurant with drive-through facilities with no further zoning action needed. The uses that could be developed today without any zoning approvals and no public hearings are far more impactful to the neighborhood than what Mr. Gohari is requesting. It is his dream and vision to develop a boutique hotel for the property. So by denying this request, you're really limiting him to his existing schedule of uses, which I can assure you is very, very permissive. We do recognize that we have submitted a bubble plan. We are not requesting deviations from fire codes and drive aisle widths and parking requirements. I would agree that the final number of units would be lesser than what's being requested and that the building footprint will change. We showed maximum conditions so that the zoning board could evaluate the maximum potential of the site per the comprehensive plan allowances. So we understand that's going to change and we are going to get there. Hopefully upon approval of the hotel use, he can take the next step forward with designing the site. And we do appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions here from the board or comments?
Yeah, I have one more question. If we approve this in some form, would that be approval to go ahead and build the parking lot at this time, which may mean that you'll never, ever have a motel? You'll have a parking lot for the bar next door, which is already a problem for the neighborhood.
I'm glad you brought that up,
Okay?
because I was going to mention something about that. I think there's two things that need to be clarified as far as the parking lot. One, they don't get the parking lot and the hotel at the same time. And that's the reason it's a temporary parking lot. So if there's any confusion on that, I want to make sure that that's the case. It is temporary. I think that you can define what temporary means. If you think it's 2 years, 3 years, I think that's something that you could decide, or you could leave it that it can be used as that parking lot until such time that the hotel or another use comes in. But it is the staff's intent that if they build a temporary parking lot, that parking lot as a commercial use itself goes away when they develop anything else on the property. So it's not in combination, it's
either or.
it's either
Either
or.
or, right.
I think I understood that. The question you raised, though, we can approve a temporary use of this parking lot with a time limit, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Or we can leave it open-ended with no time limit.
Right, and I would draft the condition saying until such time a hotel is constructed or another use in the CC zoning district is placed on the property, a temporary parking lot is permitted on the parcel, and then whether or not you want it, I can put something like, but in no event may this parking lot stay beyond 5 years, or no, which would be 5 years from development order, or no, not to be longer than 2020 or 2030, whatever the zoning board recommends.
Can we make that condition that, say we put 5 years or a time frame on it? Anything beyond that, they need to come back for an additional extension?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. If it's a temporary parking lot, can they use it can anything be parked on it?
Well, that would
Can
be up to the
landfill trucks or
property
anything
owner, I
like that?
guess. I don't know. Mr. Dahmer, I see you shaking your head.
I think the question goes to, can they store trucks or equipment on there? This would be a passenger vehicle parking is what the request is for, not for commercial vehicles or for storage of those vehicles.
Thank you, and I think that should be entered into
Okay.
the record.
Yes, I think so too. And to the concern of the neighbors from the Citadel, I don't think they want, after the Momentum closes in the evening, for somebody to come along and be able to park a refrigerated truck there that would run all night long. I don't know. That's a policing issue, I would imagine.
It could be. The only time that I think we've addressed this in the recent past has been for the racetrack fuel station, where there was a restriction on no idling of commercial vehicles. And if this board wished to impose that type of condition here, I don't see how it would impact the operation of either the hotel or the parking lot.
Let me ask another question. If the Momentum Brewery, who's using this as an additional parking facility for their operation, if they wanted to put food trucks back there to serve food to their client base, would that be allowed under this
Food
condition?
trucks would be under the food vendor, food truck ordinance. So there already are regulations in place that they would have to meet and permits that they would need to obtain prior to going out there.
So what I'm hearing is, yes, they could do that as long as they met the conditions of the food truck.
Yes, sir, but they are not unique. As long as you're not in specified corridors, if you apply for a temporary food truck vendor, you can have that. But what was done during that debate was to truly define and create a temporary to the temporary food truck vendor, so that we're really looking at somebody that's there for no more than 24 hours.
Okay, all right. Anything else? We have, sir, come back forward. You have to come up here. Wait a minute, wait till you get up here, please.
Right, please speak in the microphone to get on the record.
Are you still intending on requesting permitted in the CC and rezone the subject property to CPD. By putting a parking lot in, does that change the zoning to CPD, or does it still stay CC?
This is a
And the-
CPD request, so it would be a condition in the CPD. Conventional zoning, we are unable to add conditions. So by doing this, he would, what the request is for, the hotel, he'd be able to have the temporary parking lot as long as there was no other use on it, and I'll read out the
Right,
conditions.
but can that be reneged afterwards? I mean, or once it's in? Because, you know, it says, it's even broader in its use. You know, swimming pool, bar, cocktail lounge. Now, we talked about a temporary entertainment license or temporary food truck. He said 24 hours. Is that 24 hours every 24 hours? Or is that 24 hours once a week, 24 hours once a month? What is it? Because it's happening every weekend now. And,
Oh, okay. So, Mr. Dolmer.
First off, I think that we're discussing the adjacent property as opposed to the subject property, which I'm not saying there shouldn't be a concern.
I was talking to
but
the
I think,
parking lot.
correct, but I think that when the residents are talking about the food trucks that are showing up to Momentum Brewery, it has to do with the Momentum Brewery use that is not necessarily part of this request. Adding a use is a serious business. So we talk about, oh, we're just approving a bubble plan. Well, we're approving a use that currently is not permitted there. It's a big deal. However, this particular request is unique in the fact that they are coming back before you with a specific plan if this board and the city council were to determine it's approved. So essentially, in this particular case, you do get 2 bites at the apple as opposed to the normal one that a normal zoning application would receive. I think that the concerns that have been raised today are very good concerns. How do emergency vehicles access the site? What is going to be the impact of delivery vehicles? Is there going to be a bar or cocktail lounge or a restaurant associated with this hotel? How is it going to specifically function? And I think that those are very important questions. Those are part of a rezoning request. This is a little bit different. Normally, we would vet those concerns today, and once this board made its recommendation, that would be the last time you would see it. However, in this particular case, we are defining, for lack of a better word, the boundaries of the request up to 60 units, up to development within a certain parameter of the property line, and with a condition to specifically study traffic and other visual and off-site impacts when the applicant actually has the site plan proposed for your acceptance. So in this particular case, while I don't take this request any less seriously than the other rezoning request, this one we can handle in stages, so it is a little bit unique. So the concerns that you've heard today, I would definitely, if you decide to, and it's this board's desire to recommend approval, keep those concerns in the back of your mind. Those are things that we need to specifically address if and when this project is approved and they come back with a specific plan. They are definitely concerns that we will have as staff. There are definitely concerns that I think this board should consider if it has a second opportunity to review. Mr. Worcester, I think several of your concerns in the beginning are valid, and that would probably be the best time to deal with specifics. What is the visual impact of a reduced setback, if there is any? What does that mean? Personally, I would look at the deviation that's requested as one that's taken in pieces. My major concern would be well, actually, I think there would be 2. One is to maintain the visual integrity of that buffer, and the second would be to allow the access of larger vehicles, whether they be delivery vehicles or emergency vehicles. And if there is a portion of that rear setback that needs to be modified to accommodate their access, then I think that would be appropriate. And I don't think that would need to be something that was across the entire rear setback, but maybe you approve that with the condition that it's not to be used across the entire width of the property, but something that's supposed to be taken in certain areas as necessary. So I don't know if you were looking for my opinion or input, but I provided it to you.
It's welcome, thank you. Mr. Sweet.
Just, I looked up the code on food vendors. If they've been having food vendors, we need to get code enforcement out there, because there's a limitation of distance from residential, and if they've been getting on that back of that lot, they're not supposed to be there. And so, based upon what we've had, I'll get a hold of code enforcement and ask them to please monitor that, because there is restrictions on how close you can be to residential, and it appears that that's been in violation, and I will forward that to code enforcement.
Good. So some good came out of the public comment on this. And I see a hand raised in the back, public comment. Come forward, sir.
Yes, this is Mitch again. As I look at, listen to all of the discussion, having a temporary parking lot, I can't see anyone that's going to benefit other than the microbrewery. Certainly, the Comfort Inn has got parking adequate for their use. You go further west, it's all medical facility, which has itself covered. So, what is the use of a temporary parking lot during the period when they're going through the design and trying to decide on final use? So, this feels like it's going to become something that'll be benefiting the microbrewery with permits that will become a very loud noise generator, potentially during the day or but particularly at night. And I think that is one of the major objections that the Citadel has, is just the concern over noise. I think that becomes a real social area that attracts a very interesting crowd, usually microbreweries do. And I just feel that this temporary use of a parking lot is going to be a real issue if it's approved to go forward.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've had our public comment, and now we have...
One more question, please.
No, you've had your limit.
Temporary parking lot, is that a paved facility?
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. With no further comment, at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to, yes, did you raise your hand, Audrey?
Yes, I did. I want to make sure before you vote on a motion, I tell you additional things that have been added since the conditions in the
Good.
staff report. Do you want me?
Please.
Okay, so if there is a motion to approve, the following changes have been made to the conditions in the staff report. A second, I want to just get back to the top. Condition 1 had a slight modification. It said, before it said should be limited to 3 stories. Instead, it is definitive. I have it limited to 3 stories. Okay, for as far as height. As to condition 3, which was the architectural design, this is where it comes back to the zoning board, because this is a bubble plan. In addition, going to the zoning board, it then goes to city council for approval, because you are the recommending agency. And that is only after it's been reviewed by the city architect. It's just cleaning up of the condition. The next big change on conditions is after the traffic conditions, because I believe that was given by our traffic engineer. I'm sorry, my computer sometimes slows down, so it takes me a second to get the document up. It's my computer.
Is that it?
No, I have more. My computer, my connection has been lost, and so I'm just waiting for it to
Oh, that happens
reconnect.
here too, huh?
It does happen. It's very upsetting.
Well, does anybody want to recite a poem or
That's,
sing a song
I would
while
love to make up time, but I can't on this. Please be patient.
You need, huh?
Unless you know how to get it
We're
back.
almost done here. I don't know.
But there will be, in addition, I added the findings of facts for both plan development and for deviations, which is a code requirement, and Jay did that during the hearing. He presented as both for deviations, and I did add a separate section for the deviation, so that the deviation is in there if you want to recommend approval or denial. I'm still waiting for the connection.
Okay. Nobody
Here.
nobody
I got
wants.
it. Hold on.
Okay.
I better quickly run to that page. Who's on?
Would you like to use my hotspot?
Possibly. There's 2 additional new conditions, so I want to read it out loud to make sure the zoning board agrees. And I want to make sure the applicant hears the condition, so it's not a surprise to the applicant.
Yes. Okay. Oh, why didn't you say that?
If anybody wants to stand up, take a short break,
Yeah,
feel
that's,
free while I'm waiting for my...
While we're waiting, I'm gonna have a little more coffee, I guess. Why don't we just call for a 3-minute recess?
That makes sense.
We're operating city lights, so the internet shuts down here.
No, it's the way my system is wired, and I do have it for this year's fiscal budget. I am changing some computer things, so I may be changing out of my outdated system, but that I love dearly. I'm adding a new condition 10. 10 reads, in the event the hotel is not developed, the applicant may retain all uses that are permitted in the CC zoning district, as those uses may be amended or changed in the future to meet the regulations implementing the Bonita Beach Road corridor and Bonita Beach Road visioning studies. Now, I do want to point out to you, there are, already existing in the Bonita Beach Road corridor, there are uses that would not necessarily be permitted on this parcel without going through a special process for those uses, just so you're aware of it. And then I added also a parking condition, until such time that a hotel is constructed or another use in the CC zoning district is permitted on the property, a temporary parking lot is permitted on the parcel, which will be allowed for 5 years from the date of the development order, and then I put in parentheses, development order or limited development order. Any additional time of use must go through the zoning process for approval. Parking is limited to passenger vehicles, i.e. no storage of trucks is permitted on the property. Now, I could put passenger vehicles and trucks. I don't know much about trucks, so I don't know.
Well, pickup trucks, a lot of people, of course, have pickup
Right,
trucks,
but-
but I would specify passenger vehicles and non-commercial pickup trucks. Can we do that?
I've got it done.
Recognizing that somebody from AAA Roofing may pull in there to use
Yeah,
the
I know,
brewery,
yeah.
but
No, and then I added deviation 1, so I added a deviation section. Now, again, this is if it's approved. Deviation 1 is granted permitting relief from LDC 3-418 D46, which requires a 15-foot type C buffer with 5 trees and 15 shrubs per 100 linear feet to allow for a 7.5, so it's half the size, type of C buffer with 6 trees and 18 shrubs per 100 linear feet. So while it's gone shorter, it's gone more vegetation in it. And those were the changes made to the documents.
okay.
Mr.
Good.
Chairman, I just want to make, as far as the time frame goes for the parking lot, I would recommend to make it a year instead of 5 years.
Well, then, why don't you make a motion to accept it with that change?
Well, make a motion with that change, to make it for 1 year instead of 5 years.
I'll second that motion.
Could I ask the zoning board to consider a number between the 1 and 5, potentially 3 years?
Pardon? I can't hear you.
Would the zoning board consider a number between 1 and 5 years, such as 3 years, since there is a significant amount of infrastructure costs to pave the parking lot, put in the buffers? The 1 year wouldn't justify the use, the construction costs of the facility. So if there is an in-between point,
I'm afraid that if we leave it go for 5 years, that parcel of land is going to become a parking lot. Okay?
But
And I would like to limit it to less than 5 years, and I'd like to limit it to a year.
But the condition is if it goes longer than 5 years or 3 years, or they have to come back for an additional
Let them come back after a year.
approval. But it,
Let the board decide on that then. That's my recommendation. That's,
Okay.
It's been seconded.
it has been seconded. We'll call for a roll call vote.
Robert and
Hey,
Serpy?
Wait a minute, before we do that, we should have some discussion.
Are we voting on the whole deal, or are we
No, just
voting
the-
just on the
just on the
thing?
parking.
We're
Right.
voting, no, actually, we're voting on the whole.
No, this is a sub-motion, and that would be addressed prior to the actual motion at hand. So you have a motion on the table. There was a request to amend it. It was seconded. I believe this motion is handled first,
and then afterwards you handle the approval issue.
Okay. So I'd like to have some discussion on the motion. And I have a feeling that 1 year isn't going to benefit the developer, and it isn't really going to help the situation at all. I think that if we put in something longer than 1 year, I would prefer to see 5 years as it's proposed, because at that point in time, then the city has to, or the property owner has to come back and ask for an extension to this board, and that way it protects the city, protects the residents from that becoming a parking lot for all time. It may very well turn out that way if the extensions are granted going forward.
If we grant it for 5 years, you've got that 5 years where that can develop into nothing but pure parking lot, period, case closed. So why give them that extra time for that? You know, you want to pave the lot, now you can do that within a year, even 18 months, but not 5 years. You're leaving that window open.
Does a paved parking lot, Robert, look better than a vacant lot?
Does it look better than a vacant lot?
A paved and landscaped parking lot.
Will it look better than a vacant? Absolutely, it will look better than a vacant lot.
A paved lot will.
Certainly.
So wouldn't that be a benefit to the corridor and to the
But
residents?
why leave it as a parking lot, a giant parking lot? That's what I'm saying.
Well,
That's what's going to happen. If you let it go after a year or 18 months, that's what's going to happen. You're just going to have more and more vehicles that park, and that have nothing to do with the hotel or anything.
I believe that the developer's wish would be to have something that's producing revenue beside, greater than what a parking lot will produce in a short period of time. We don't know that, but
I will go to 18 months. I'll rescind it and make it 18 months, but not a day longer. That's my
Okay.
feeling. I'm sorry.
well,
Mr. Chair, I'd entertain talking about 3 years as well.
okay,
What, 3 years?
that's what Mr. Kissinger is stating, or is asking, or recommending.
Does the motion, the
Well, we
person-
have a motion on the table for 1 year, so is there any further discussion on that?
Yeah, they can come back before the 1 year's up and ask for an extension.
But they won't, but if for 1 year, would you invest in the infrastructure for 1 year?
Well, they can have confidence that they're gonna get an extension if they come in with a plan
It
that
doesn't
makes
sound,
sense.
this doesn't sound like it's very confident from this board at this point.
And we may have a new board at that point.
I
Okay.
understand.
Well, we have a motion, so let's, any other discussion?
What's the motion?
The motion is for approval for 1 year with the, under the conditions
No, I changed it 1 year to 18 months. I said I would go as far as 18
well,
months.
we have to approve we have to vote on the 1 year first, right?
Well,
Or can he change
the
it?
motioner's made a change to the motion. Does the seconder agree to the change to the motion?
I agree.
Okay, so now it's 18 months.
All right, with the conditions.
Right, so it's condition 11, and the way it reads, it'll change, instead of saying which will be allowed for 5 years from date of development order, it'll be 18 months from date of development order. And then any additional time, and I clarified, any additional time for the parking lot must go through the zoning process for approval, and I put amendment to the CPD, administrative approval not permitted.
Okay,
So it has to come back to this board, go through the process.
okay. So, we have that motion, everybody's clear on it? So can we have a roll call, please?
Robert Inserpi,
Yes.
Stephen Kissinger,
Abstain. Can I abstain?
Yes.
Now, why would you? Yes
You
or
can
no?
abstain if you have a conflict or an appearance of a conflict.
Okay, then no.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Brunswick,
No.
Richard Donnelly,
Yes.
Frank Wiles.
Yes.
Yes,
So it'll change the
So-
18 months.
18 months, and then they'll have to come back after 18 months and look for an extension. Okay, that settles it then. We have a motion, and we'll have a parking lot there for 18 months if the developers,
Now you
that-
need to do a motion on the chief, which, that was for condition 11. So now it is approval of the, unless there's any other changes to any other conditions.
of the second part. Okay.
Right.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the conception of the property for a hotel. Anyone want to make a motion to approve that? I'm not hearing a motion. Do you want to make a motion to not approve it?
I'd like to make a motion to deny the application without prejudice. Without prejudice gives the applicant a chance to go back and respond to some of the issues that have been raised today, notably the traffic issue, notably the size of the building, other issues that are that we would have hoped to have been addressed with this initial application. We seem to be sort of kicking the can down the road and putting all these decisions off to the development order stage. My feeling is that we really can't, as a zoning board, make intelligent decisions unless we have some of those answers
Right.
going in today. So denying without prejudice gives the owner, the applicant, a chance to work with staff. He already knows that now he's not going to get 60 units. They're going to be less. How many less? Does it still make sense for him to do that? He also has an opportunity to work with the traffic visioning issue to make sure that he's not going to get killed at the end of the day when he goes in for his development order. I think he needs to have the comfort of knowing just where he stands. So in denying it without prejudice, I think gives him another day in court. That's my motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion? Roll call.
Robert and Serpy,
No.
Stephen Kiss.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute, you mean yes to
Are you motion to deny, it's a motion to deny.
To deny, I agree with that.
Okay, so you would vote yes then?
Right, to deny it, right?
Okay.
So say yes.
Yes, I said.
Okay, continue.
Stephen Kissinger,
Yes.
Chairman Brunswick,
No.
Richard Donnelly,
Yes.
Frank Wiles,
Yes.
James Worcester.
Yes?
Now, it still goes back to, unless the applicant decides to withdraw, it goes to city council. They're the ones who actually would decide whether to do it. Your recommendation is a denial without prejudice, so that they're not time barred for a year. But it still goes back to city council. He'll make that actual, but that's your recommendation.
That's correct. And we understand that. Okay. I understand we have other people in the room. We had a case that was continued till next month, Villages of Bonita. And I understand, are there people in the room that live outside of this area, or maybe that have traveled specifically into town to speak to this? Raise your hands. I see one. Is there anybody else? I see just one I understand. Okay. Traveled or took off work. Ma'am, where did you come from for this? And you came in specifically? Gotcha. Okay. After a very brief recess, I'd like to, well, we just had one, so let's not have a recess. Let's just go ahead and, it's kind of unusual, I think, because the applicant's consul's here, but the applicant is not here. Well, let's, huh?
If I may, I'll call the case and open it up just
Sure.
specifically for this purpose, and then the case in chief will be heard. Now, I need to make sure we have a quorum August 16th. Is there anybody who plans not to be here August 16th? because I do need a quorum. More than a quorum is even better. So August 16th looks like a good day.
Everybody's good, no, nobody's shaking their,
Okay.
anybody won't be here?
I may not
Frank,
make
will
it.
you be here August 16th?
Should, not unless this goes out.
Well, if mine goes out, I won't be here either, but as far as you know, you'll be here. You won't be?
I'll be here.
Okay.
I may have a conflict. I'll try to resolve it.
We'll still have a quorum. Okay.
Okay. At this time, I'm calling the Bonita Village Mixed-Use Plan Development Amendment case. This is a case located at 27690 Imperial River Road, along with 27901 Bonita Village Boulevard, 27934 Meadowlark Lane, and also 3840, 3894, 3962, 3974, and 3998 Bonita Beach Road. In this case, we did receive a continuance in this case, a request for a continuance. The applicant does have a right to a continuation, but we do know that there were people from out of town. At this time, I'd like to just swear in the one or two people into the record. In fact, they can come forward and I'll swear them in prior to them speaking. We're opening up the record specifically and limited to them being able to speak on the record because of the fact that they are not available for the next hearing. They can speak again at city council, but they don't get two shots at the apple. They get one at the zoning board, at which point I also determined that the applicant was not prejudiced because the applicant, under the Jennings case, could respond afterwards, so they have all the due process that they need. So at this time, if the gentleman...
Wait a minute. Neil's got a
Uh-huh.
hand up here in the
Yeah,
air.
thank you. Neil Montgomery for the record. I do want to indicate that as a general rule, Audrey pointed out in an earlier case, the applicant typically puts on a case and then the staff responds. So the folks that will be speaking will not have the benefit of having heard any evidence at this juncture. So that's obviously a concern. And also, the applicant has some concerns and questions about some of the conditions, some which were similar to the ones you had questions about today. So we took the continuance to try to work through those issues so we can bring greater clarity here for you, but also for the folks. So I just want to put that on the record.
Okay. You folks, so if you want to do public comment, please step forward and you'll give your name and be sworn in up here. Sir, you have your hand up. Do you wish to make public comment? It's a good question. We just, I don't have an answer for you, sir. Okay.
Ma'am, may I have you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm testimony you provide today is truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please talk loud enough, state your name into the microphone along with your address and state your
Okay,
concerns.
I'm going to be very shaky here. I don't like public speaking.
We
My name
understand.
is-
Just relax. We're all
know.
neighbors.
My name is Melissa Buckland, and my home address is 140 Hemlock Hollow Drive, Cogan Station, PA. I currently own a condo in Bonita Village. I happen to be in Building 1 on the 4th floor on the end where I am going to be greatly affected by his plan. I've attended via conference several of the board meetings that he has spoke at. Every time he speaks, it's something different. We can't get a 100% this is what he's doing. It changes every time. I kind of feel like we're being told just what we want to hear on this. At first, it was 108 feet. Well, where I'm at, on the corner, 108 feet would totally block any sunlight, any view that I have. The building where I pull out of, he is going to change the driveway of how we come out. We would then have to deal with the 480 people, the rooms. We'd have to deal with all that traffic coming out. He does not have enough parking. He hasn't even spoken with anyone to deal with this parking. my husband is an environmentalist, and something that he pulled up regarding this is, and he pulled it from the EPA website, the VOCs regarding all the traffic that would have to be dealt with would be 9.85 tons of pollutant per day. That is only if you consider one car per 480 rooms, 360 employees, plus 100 outsiders for this. That doesn't include the special functions, the traffic from that. He goes in and broke down the different pollutants that the EPA website has said, like THC, the CO, the NOx, the PM10, the PM2.5, the CO2s. If you take all of those and add them up just from this traffic, that puts over 4,300 or 4,034.35 tons of pollutant into the air a day. That doesn't include that this area also has a tortoise that is protected, that we have been told has been moved once before and not correctly. So I have great concerns about that. The traffic issue, we all know what it's like trying to get down Bonita during season. He wants to propose to take out the first turn-in signal at the flashing light and make them all come down that little tiny road. I'm not even sure one way it's called Vanderbilt. I'm not sure what it's called the other direction. That already would be hard to get in and out. He's proposed that he's going to build a parking lot across the street, but has not gotten permission to even do that. So I just have a lot of concerns with this, and because I have raised concerns, I have been targeted by this man. I have been sent very nasty emails, which I think from a developer is inappropriate. I have been singled out in board meetings because I oppose it. I have been singled out in private conversations to the point that I have gotten very nasty comments from other people who want a building there. I'm not against development, but what I'm against is a 480-room hotel going in. My husband and I bought this. We're in our 40s. We wanted to retire here. My husband's been coming down to this area for 40 years. We've watched a lot of development happen. But this would be a huge, huge debacle in this area. We'd like to live down here permanently, eventually. And to see something this big, that's bigger than the hotel down in Naples, the big conference center. And I just think there's a lot of issues that he has left unresolved for all of us. I kind of feel like when we're spoken to, you know how when you go in and buy a used car and the salesman will tell you just anything you want to hear to get you to buy that car? That's kind of how we have felt with all of this. In terms of just even the water usage that a 480-room hotel would propose, if you figure that 480 rooms would use 400 gallons per day, so you take that 480 times 400, that's 192,000 gallons of water used per day. For a year, that is 70,080,000 gallons of water. I mean, we've done our research on this. I don't understand why it has to be so big. I mean, the previous developer had already had it changed. So I know several people within Bonita Village is very upset because this greatly affects us. A lot of us come down here for vacation and not to deal with all that this would bring into our community. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Sir, step up to the microphone. She'll swear you in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you provide today's truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. If you'll state your name.
Steve Andrzejewski. I live off 3975 Quails Walk.
Speak into the microphone.
I'm like she is about public speaking. I don't like it.
That's all right.
But the first thing I noticed, just like she was saying, the hotel is too big. Trying to build something that big, it's already a parking lot out there during season. When I come home from work, you can't turn right. If I'm coming up Vanderbilt, you can't head to the east because it's just backed up all the way to that red light. It'll be backed up all the way to Imperial. During the day, if you're trying to get to Bonita Beach, it'll be backed up past Luke, stop traffic. So proposing to build something this big is to me, it's kind of ridiculous. The other thing I found very funny is they notify 375 feet, and I guess that's what the rule is. And then they post these signs about this big in the palmetto bushes, hiding that they're going to have this public hearing. If it's something that would be good for the community, why wouldn't they want to advertise it, you know, like a billboard? Like you see Blackjack's Pizza's being built, everybody knows that's being built. It's a big sign, you know, they advertise it to show it. This is, like she was saying, they're trying to hide it. So I even went out and I took these notices that we got. I got 208 signatures, myself and other people. Nobody knew about this project. I was notified because I was close. Nobody else knew about it. You know, one of our concerns is traffic. I live off Luke and Quails Walk. Right now, Quails Walk during seasons is like 41 because everybody cuts in there. They go down Quails Walk. They go out behind Publix to get out to 41 because its traffic's so bad. Meadowlark, you can't get out during the season. So that's, you know, one of our biggest concerns. It's traffic. That's
Okay.
the most I got to say for now.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all I can think about right at the moment. They're saying I can't come back next week or next
No.
month because I talked today because
Well, again, you're not supposed to have many bites to the apple. We're letting, as a courtesy, allowing, because I know you took time off, and that way you don't need to take time off twice, but you will be able to talk again to city council. Unless there is something new that you learn from the application, I would discourage it because it's not fair to the applicant or the process if we allow multiple communications.
with all due respect, it wasn't fair to us who took our time to come here
To have a short
and we weren't
continuance,
notified.
yes.
I mean, when did they continue this? A week ago?
Less than a week.
Why weren't we notified?
For the record, Jacqueline Genson. With public notification, we mail it out at least 30 days prior to the hearing. The applicant did submit formal continuance paperwork on Thursday, and I did notify those people that had given me email addresses of the continuance on Friday, so we really didn't have ample time to prepare additional notices to all 220 people we mailed out the first time. So we do apologize. We did the best we could.
Okay. Any other comments,
Yes,
sir?
No.
Thank you for your comments. Ma'am?
One thing that I'd like to address with what he said, we were told at Bonita Village that Omer has contacted all the locals, that he's kept everybody apprised. So I just wanted you to know that that's what we're being told within the village, is that he is keeping everybody apprised. So with that being said, that is also now a shock to me that the outsiders are not being told what is going on here. And just so that you know, there are many people within Bonita Village who does not want it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion of this meeting, and we'll continue this. We'll continue this application.
So time
on
specific, August
16th
Yes,
at
sir.
9 a.m.
Yes, sir.
And we invite you back to participate at that time. The only... What's the question? You have I just had public comment, and you had an opportunity to step forward.
Well, she,
Oh, will you be first on the docket?
yes, there are no other cases.
There are no
scheduled
other
for today.
cases, so yes. Okay, and we apologize for you not having notice of being noticed, but as Ms. Jensen said, there's just wasn't the time to get it published. Okay, without any further, the only further business I have is approval of the minutes from the April 19th.
Make a motion that
Hearing?
we accept the minutes as read.
Second.
Roll call?
Robert and Serpy,
Yes.
Chairman Brunswick,
Yes.
Richard Donnelly,
Yes.
Frank Wiles,
Yes.
James Worcester,
Yes.
Stephen Kissinger.
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned.